Are going to get started, everyone. Uh, First off, welcome. My name is Jillian Robertson. I work at the Career Development Center here at Haskayne. Thank you all for joining us for today's virtual Lunch and Learn. Many of you are probably wondering, how do you network in our new reality? A lot of our traditional venues of big events on campus have changed and have moved virtually. I've also heard students a little bit worried about reaching out due to assumptions that people might be too busy or not able to network during these times. So I'm really excited to help sort of expand the possibilities of what networking can be in these times. I'd like to welcome our presenters. We have Courtney Majot and Sana Wu from the campus team at BDO Canada. Thank you guys so much for creating a really exciting presentation today and being open to networking and engaging with our students. We also have 3 U of C students and alum who are working at BDO Canada right now, because I know how important it is to get that student perspective and hear about their experiences. We have Kate Thorne, Christy Cheng, and Mary Zhang. So welcome, everyone. I'd like to do a little quick poll just to gauge where everybody is from, because we did open this up to U of C and Mount Royal students. So can everyone see? Oh, relaunch polling. Here we go. Can you share with us on the poll if you're from U of C here or if you're from Mount Royal? And 16 of 18 have voted. Oh, and we've got one more from MRU who's commented in the chat. Okay, so end polling, and I'll share the results. Well, thank you for our Mount Royal peers who are joining us today. The last thing I wanted to comment on was just some Zoom etiquette. We are going to be having breakout sessions at the end of this, so please turn on your camera if possible so that you can make a nice impression and we can see your face during the breakout sessions. Feel free to ask questions throughout using the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. We may not get to them until the end of the session, but if they come to you, feel free to ask them. If we can move to the next slide, Courtney. I just want to remind you that this is part of a series. So we held one with Avanti on remote work best practices on Tuesday, and you can find that through CareerLink. We have a recording, as well as coping with loss or deferral of student jobs with MMP next week, and how to succeed in your virtual job search with PwC next week also. So check it out, and hopefully you can join us. So now, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Courtney. Thank you so much for hosting us today.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jillian, and for Danielle for inviting us to be part of this Lunch and Learn series. Over here at BDO, things have looked a little bit different for the last couple of months. So we've been continuously adapting and showing our resilience as much as possible, as all of our staff across Canada have adapted to a new work from home strategy. So one thing that hasn't changed throughout all of this is our commitments to our clients has remained the same, which is to deliver exceptional accounting services to them and customer service. But over here, from the recruitment standpoint, our commitment to you is to provide you with engaging opportunities to get to know the firm, and ultimately, hopefully those will lead to career opportunities with us as well. So I did want to say thank you to each and every single one of you. I've been continuously impressed with the students that we get the pleasure of meeting every day, with your adaptability from moving to online classes. Some of you, maybe that's an online work term right now, as it is for a couple of our BDO staff who've joined us today, and then ultimately moving your job search online. I know it's been a time of tremendous change, so it's really cool just to see how adaptable everybody is and how innovative everyone has become with how to make the most of these times. So What we're going to do today is go through a presentation on how to enhance your virtual networking skills, share some of the tips and tricks that we've been learning over the last couple of months as we do this type of session across Canada. But honestly, virtual networking is brand new to us too. So if we make any mistakes or if our technology fails, I invite you to laugh along with us, and maybe even just appreciate the beauty and how we're all adapting to this together and trying to make the most of, what a couple of months ago would have seemed like a very surreal way of doing things. So as Jillian mentioned, there are a few of us on the call today. So I'm going to start off with some introductions so you can get to know who's on the team. So my name's Courtney. I'm a senior campus recruitment specialist with BDO, which essentially means I help students like yourselves find roles at BDO offices across Canada. So I'm personally based out of Edmonton, so don't hold that against me. I'm not a sports fan, so I'm not going to criticize your teams at all. But in normal times, I do travel to Calgary quite frequently. It's one of the main schools that I recruit from. So I have had the pleasure of meeting a few of you in person at Meet Your Employer and other events like that. So with me today, I do have a few colleagues. So what I'm going to get each of you to do, probably starting with Sana, is just quickly introduce yourself, what you do at BDO, and what your favorite quarantine activity is. So why don't you kick that off, Sana?
All right, so hi everyone, I'm Sana Wu. I'm the campus recruitment coordinator for the West East regions of BDO Canada. So I help out Courtney for the West regions. I work out in the BC office, in the Vancouver office specifically, and my quarantine hobby is going on photo walks. So it's great to virtually meet you all.
Cool. Kate, why don't you go next?
Hi, I'm Kate. I'm a third year at U of C and I'm also in Canadian tax for an 8-month internship. And I've done a lot of puzzles this quarantine, and when it's nice out, I try to get outside.
Kate, did you see that Heinz Ketchup released a puzzle that is 500 pieces and it's all just red squares?
I did see that. It looks very difficult.
Cool. How about you, Mary?
Hi, I'm Mary, and I'm doing A&A right now, so audit and assurance. And during this quarantine, I feel like I've done a lot of movie watching, like Netflix and stuff, but like you just share a screen with friends and it's all good. It's the best you can do.
Nice. Any favorite movies?
Not really. We've just been watching whatever just pops up on the recommended, so.
Nice. Very cool. Thank you,
Thanks.
Mary. And how about you, Christy?
So I'm going into my 5th year, and I'm also part of Canadian tax, and I've been taking a lot of my time to just draw and paint over this quarantine period.
Awesome. Well, thanks, everyone. I don't think I mentioned my favorite virtual activity, but I recently got a virtual reality headset, and I've been playing Beat Saber like crazy. So if any of you students have played Beat Saber, throw a thumbs up into the Zoom chat. I want to know where my fellow Beat Saber enthusiasts are. All right. So before we get into the meat of the presentation, I just wanted to introduce what BDO is. I know not all of you are from the accounting discipline, so you may not be familiar with our organization. But BDO, we are a public accounting firm. So we help clients across Canada with their accounting needs, whether that's bookkeeping, audit, tax advisory, or even just general business advice. So across Canada, we have 125 branches. But out west, we typically hire around 200 students. So 200 students either into full-time roles, co-ops, internships. Here in Alberta, we have branches in Calgary, Edmonton, Red Deer, Lethbridge, and Grand Prairie. So those are all places that you could get placed in Alberta if you're open to relocating. But myself and Sana, we also oversee recruitment for 15 other branches, both in BC and Manitoba, and one little branch in Yukon. So that's kind of what we specialize in, is helping you find roles. From a firm perspective, we work with some of the biggest brands across Canada. Some of them are brand names you'd recognize like Freshii, and then others would be small mom and pop shops local to the communities that we operate in. So if you're looking for opportunities to help people and help their businesses, that is what we specialize in. The people that we work with are entrepreneurs, and we just try to do the best we can to advise their businesses. So from getting to the real bones of this presentation, we are going to talk today about how to expand your professional network. We're going to talk about the different types of virtual networking that are out there, and how you can find those opportunities. And if you can't find opportunities, how you can actually create those opportunities yourself. We'll do a Q&A at the end. Like Jillian said, you can throw your questions into the comments throughout the presentation. If I say something or Sana says something that you're interested in hearing more about, throw a question. We'll just save it to the end though, so that we stay more or less on track for time. And then at the end, we're going to break into smaller rooms. So myself and then each of the other 4 BDO staff members will all be split up, and you guys will be randomly assigned by Jillian to join a networking room. And you can put the new virtual networking skills that we're teaching you today to practice. So let's start talking by what is your professional network? So in my opinion, the term networking is a little bit of a buzzword. When I was in first year university, I had professors and guest speakers and older students who would always be like, yeah, business, it's all about networking. And to me, I had no idea what that even meant. I thought that like my peers and my professors were all in on some kind of secret, that they knew what this was, but I didn't know. So I really felt like I was out in the lurch. I thought that unless I was like going out, like specifically being like, I'm going to network now, then maybe I wasn't doing it, or I wasn't doing it right. But little did I know that by the time I was in my second year of university, I had actually already built a very robust network. I just didn't call it that because I didn't know what the heck a network was. So some of the people that, early in my university degree, I would consider part of my network were the people that I did my very first business project with. Some of the professors that I had formed relationships with. I had this one HR professor who taught me like all of my classes. And then I had another marketing professor who had taught my sister, and he was automatically nice to me. I made friends with the HR manager at Rona, where I'd worked for 2 years, and she was able to answer all sorts of questions for me about what an HR career looks like. I had friends that I attended seminars with. Some of them were older students who already had jobs. So the truth is, I'd been networking all this time, and I'd been adding people to my network, and it happened very organically and wasn't as intimidating as you would think. So who should be in your network? Really, these are going to be your friends and family. So anyone that you've been friends with since you were in preschool, your great aunt Karen, your third cousin, all of these people could be part of your network. Especially if they're older than you, they probably already have jobs already, and they can provide you some career advice, or they can provide you some advice on how to build your resume. They might have friends and family members that they can direct you to if there's a specific area of interest. Your current coworkers, as well as any former coworkers. You never know, that person who was a cashier with you at Lululemon may have gone on to get their CFA designation, and they can answer all sorts of questions to you about that. Any of your classmates are part of your network already, and the more you get to know them and make friendships and meaningful connections with them, the more you can continue to have these people in your network after graduation and beyond. Any of your professors, coaches, teachers from high school, people that you volunteer with in the community, they will be part of your network, as well as members of any professional associations. So if any of you are interested in getting your CPA designation or your CFA, and you've gone to networking events in the past, back when things were still happening in person, you can continue to draw on those connections that you've made, or you can make new ones as time moves forward and you have a chance to meet with people from these. And then don't forget any of your career advisors. So Jillian and Danielle are part of your network now, as are me and Sana. So we're people that you can talk to anytime you want to get advice on careers and opportunities. So before we move forward, what I want to do is maybe just give you guys 2 minutes. I know you're on your computer, so open up a Word document or grab a pen and paper. I think it'd be a great exercise to write down somebody that you have that falls into each one of these 6 categories. So that will help you start thinking and brainstorming about who's in your network. And then following this call, you can maybe start reaching out to some of these people. Make sure to include my name and Sana's name on your list of people in your network too. If you guys want, you are also welcome to screenshot or take a picture of any of these slides. I'm happy for you to have them if you want to take a picture of this slide, and you can come back and continue to brainstorm this later in the day. That is totally welcome. I will be very flattered if you start busting out your cell phones, taking a picture of your computer screen. Okay. So now that we have talked about who is in your network, Sana is going to chat with us about how you can start engaging with these people and where you can find virtual opportunities to network.
Thanks, Courtney. All right, so if you have time, always look for opportunities to attend organized virtual networking events. So you can find organized virtual opportunities in your school classes, your webinars, and virtual events. So always stay updated with your school and your school clubs as they generally post their events in advance, such as this Lunch and Learn, as well as virtual campus events, so firm, industry, company events. To get informed before one of these events are gonna really help you tremendously. So do some research on your presenters, the companies who will be attending. You can check out their presenters' LinkedIn profile, as well as you can check their company bio and learn a little bit about the company before you attend the events. So the more you know, the more you can kind of ask questions and get to know more a little bit about what you want to figure out before you go to one of those events. As well as social media platforms where you can follow your favorite firms and companies. They post their upcoming events. They're usually either on a story or on a post. And Courtney will kind of elaborate more on the benefits of the social media presence a little bit later. And also some additional tips that I have for you guys are kind of uncover ways to have virtual opportunities by always being prepared and professional. This could be by being dressed properly, as I can see you guys all are today, because you never know if you're going to be in a video or not. As well as virtual networking from home can kind of give you an interesting advantage. So, usually we're on campus and we're in person. We don't really have, notepads or pen and paper to kind of write down things. So, during this time while a presenter is talking, you can take notes, you can Google things, you can write down questions that come to mind. So, for example, if a speaker is mentioning a helpful website, you can search it up and bookmark it to your browser. Key dates, interesting tips, you can write it down as well, which is really helpful because you usually can't do that at a campus event. And we can go to the next slide. All right, and kind of now that you know where to connect virtually, you can create your own opportunities. So reach out to your connections. You can figure out who to connect with that would be beneficial to your network. I would suggest sending a message on LinkedIn or by email to make a connection. You can always send a cold message, so either, again, to Courtney and I, since we just met today, or even to our staff like Kate, Mary, and Christy. We're always happy to chat and to let students know about our careers as well as BDO, and we promise we won't bite. And as well as, when do you send messages to connect, you be sure to manage your expectations of responses as well. So 1 in 3 people might reach back out to you, and that's okay, because sometimes people are busy and we're professionals as well, and we want to be able to understand that we can message you when we have the time, but don't be sad when someone doesn't message you back. It's always good to just build your professional network, because maybe they'll just add you at that time being and refer back to that message when they do have time to respond to you. And also, the key thing is to kind of make strong connections when reaching out. So it's great to kind of receive a kind message, even if we don't respond right away. We'll definitely kind of refer back to that, and that could spark a great conversation, and that's really what you want to do when you're sending messages out to connect. So if you do have an opportunity to connect with somebody, sorry, Courtney, if you can go back to the slide there, the previous slide. Yeah. So Just one more. So if you want to go back to the slide of reach out to your connections. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah,
All right.
start with that.
So if you do get an opportunity to connect with somebody, so someone actually messaged you back, that's great. You can ask us to schedule a 20-minute conversation. So a virtual chat, we kind of have these virtual coffee chats, which are really great. So you can reach out to do that, to ask for one of those. And be specific when you are being able to connect with someone. So do you want to know about their career path, more about the company, the hiring processes? It's always better to ask for advice and tips rather than asking for, job openings and then ending the conversation there. During these times, it's kind of hard to discuss if there are job openings, but if you ask a question to somebody about their role or kind of processes that they can explain to you, it's more beneficial and it's more impactful that way, with a conversation that can kind of flow better than just kind of being like, is there a job open? And then there's none, so you kind of end the conversation. When students and I have conversations, it leaves a really good impression on me, and as well as that's kind of really what you want to get out of a connection versus a 5-minute conversation of, are there job postings? Because you can definitely look at that online, whereas when you get the opportunity for a 20-minute chat, you're really trying to get to know the person that you're connecting with, because that can be really impactful later on. So, as well as we have some examples here that Courtney are going to show of some messages that actually students have sent to her. So Courtney, if you wanted to let them see those.
Sure. Before I move on to the examples, I just wanted to add a couple of really quick points. So the first one is, something that Jillian and I have been talking about leading up to this presentation is I think that it's very intimidating for students to reach out spontaneously, like to know, what am I going to say? Am I going to come across in a way that I don't mean to? Am I annoying somebody by reaching out? And I just want to reassure you completely that it is 100% okay to reach out to us. So whether that's through a LinkedIn message or through an email, we get dozens of those all the time. In a typical week, I probably talk to 6 to 8 students for 20-minute conversations. So if you think that you're going to be the first student to ever reach out on LinkedIn and it's going to create some kind of crazy impression, that is absolutely not the case. That is, between attending a couple of events a month, a large part of mine and Sana's responsibility is to talk to students and to make those connections and answer your questions. So you are not doing anything, out of the normal by reaching out. And then similarly, if you want to chat with somebody who's at your own level, then do so. If you have a classmate who has a job somewhere that you would love to work, just reach out to them. Worst they're going to say is no, they're not available, or they don't have the capacity, or they just forget to message you back altogether. But in that case, it's not personal, it's business. And then you can move on to the next person on your list. So have that list of 6 people ready. And I would say your homework is going to be to start crafting some messages. So I pulled up some examples. I thought it might be helpful for you to see what these types of messages can look like. So these are real messages that I have received. I have the names as scratched out. So this one came from a student in BC. So hi, Courtney, my name is blank, and I'm currently enrolled at BCIT in the BBA program. Following graduation, I will start the DAP program, which is the Diploma in Accounting program at that school. And I've recently decided to pursue my CPA. So I'd love to set up a virtual chat with you to discuss the recruitment process and the BDO. So if you think back to some of the tips that Sana gave, this person didn't simply ask, are you recruiting? Because sometimes if you ask, are you recruiting? The answer is no. And that's a yes or no question. So this person left it open. They want to talk about the recruitment process. So even if at this exact time on April 1st, we weren't hiring, she and I ended up having a good 20-minute conversation where I talked about what that would look like and some of the things that we're planning to do virtually and some of our contingency plans if campuses don't open up. I was also able to answer some of her questions. And the nice thing is, like, now from a recruitment standpoint, I know this student, I know her name. So when her application ultimately comes across my desk, if she decides to pursue a career with BDO, I recognize that name already. So it just gives that slight leg up. So another example, so that first one I guess would say was like a cold reach out. I'd never met that student before. This is an example of an email that I received from a student middle of March after attending an event. So from a student at the University of Alberta, they mentioned some of the things that we spoke about. So I appreciated speaking about skills and qualities the BDO looks for. We talked about technology, continuous development, and then we also talked a lot about the diversity and inclusion efforts that we have at BDO. So this student made the effort of recalling the things that we talked about, which obviously made a great impression that, she wasn't just standing there deer in a headlight, she was actually processing the things that we were talking about and making mental notes of it. So that was great to see in her email. And then she did have kind of her follow-up from that was, can we connect on LinkedIn? And she can direct any further questions that way. So in this case, we didn't end up having a 20-minute conversation because we'd already met in person at an event, but we are now LinkedIn connections, and she can be aware of any further events that BDO hosts just by being part of my LinkedIn network and seeing anything that I post about. So again, feel free to screenshot these. I think that this one follows a really great formula of thanking somebody for their time, expressing an interest, and then a follow-up request. So that's a great way to follow up with somebody that you've already met. And then the previous example, which I'll just go back to if you do want to screenshot it all, is just a really simple, straight to the point, cold outreach, which resulted in a conversation as well.
We're hoping to see some of them from you after this as well, guys. So
yeah, 18 of them, I would hope. Cool. All right. So we wanted to share some tips on social media as well. So I'm sure that that all of you know at this point that LinkedIn is your go-to professional networking website. But I did want to point out that there's actually great ways to interact with different organizations and communities through the other types of social media as well. So if you are on Facebook, I would recommend that you follow any accounting clubs. So if the U of C Haskayne has their accounting club, or the MRU Business Students Association, you can follow their Facebook pages. A lot of times they'll share updates on any firm events that are happening, as well as any bar hops or whatever the social events that the clubs organize. So it's a great place to follow them. Some accounting firms, and especially I've noticed the local accounting firms, will post any jobs that they have on their websites or any events that they're hosting. Sometimes like the national ones, like the Big Four or the mid-sized firms like us, don't really have a very active social media presence, but some of the smaller ones do have pages on Facebook. So make sure that that's what you are kind of looking for and searching and favoriting on Facebook so they show up first in your feed. From an Instagram perspective, that's where you're going to find a lot of the lifestyle information about the companies that you're interested in. So if you want to know, like what type of people work there, what type of diversity and inclusion initiatives they have, how they volunteer in their community, typically that's what you're going to see like in the feed of somebody's Instagram account. Headphone fell out there. But in the stories, you'll often see like posts about events that are upcoming. So it's a great place to go if you want to learn more about the lifestyle somewhere, or if you want to see any updates on future events. So I would say follow the firms or companies that you want to work for on Instagram. Follow your accounting clubs. Again, they may have Instagram accounts. I'm sure Haskayne or U of C has some type of Instagram account. Maybe Jillian can confirm that. But those are all great things to follow on Instagram so that you're getting updates there too. You're on mute, Jillian, but it looks like you said yes, you have an Instagram.
Yeah, the Haskayne Career Development Center has a Instagram as well as Facebook page. So events like this you can find on there too.
Cool. And sometimes there's even like posts that are surrounding like helpful tips and tricks. So lots of good stuff to find on Instagram. Plus, if you make your own account private, you don't need to worry about us coming and creeping you either. So for email, this one, maybe you wouldn't consider that like a way to network, but I just want to point out that it's important to look at your email throughout the year, even if it's the summertime, because the campus, like Haskayne, will send out posts about like events that are coming up, like this Lunch and Learn series. If you're a part of the mailing list for CPA Alberta or other organizations you're interested in, you might get emails throughout the year. If you've signed up for any leadership conferences, you may receive updates from them on terms of like what the new formats are going to be. So make sure to just like get into a regular habit of like looking at your email. I'm part of distribution lists where I delete things right when they come to me. But if they're coming from an organization or from the school, it's actually probably a really good idea just to click into it and see what the email is about in case there's some interesting information or some networking opportunities that are presented through those. Lastly, you can also go onto the campus websites for organizations that you're interested in. Ours is bdo.ca/careers. On our website, we have blog posts that share helpful tips on how to nail your application. We have event calendars. Our applications are done online. So it's great to use some of this downtime that you have throughout the summer to do research on the companies that you want to work for and start bookmarking them. Now, I could spend an entire presentation just talking about LinkedIn as a tool, but I want to just highlight what I consider to be the most important aspects of LinkedIn. So first off, every single one of you should have a LinkedIn profile. If you don't have one, that's a homework item for you. Go on, create a LinkedIn, because a lot of times you are going to meet individuals and you won't know their email addresses. So you can't rely on email to be your way of cold reaching out to someone. Whereas if you add them on LinkedIn, if they accept your connection request, you can send them a free message. I will say though that if you don't add them and they don't accept your connection request, you might not be able to message them because of InMail is basically a paid feature. So just send a connection request, and if it gets accepted, you can message people for free. In your LinkedIn profile, make sure you have a profile picture. As a recruiter, I will often, once I'm looking through my stack of resumes, I will go to LinkedIn profiles. So I might say, okay, Andrew Stanix, I recognize that name. I picked on you because I can see your video right now. But I might be like, oh, I recognize that name. I think I know this guy. And then I go to your LinkedIn profile and your picture's there. And then that helps put a face to the name. So have a picture, don't have just like that little ghost emoji, and make sure that your profile picture is obviously professional. It doesn't have to be done by a professional photographer, but it shouldn't be scandalous. So other tips about LinkedIn is that if you try to add somebody on LinkedIn and they don't accept your connection request, you can still follow them. So say I'm behind on my LinkedIn, I haven't logged in 3 weeks, so I haven't accepted any connection requests. There's actually a button that says follow. So you can still follow me and you can still see my updates. So if I post about any upcoming events, you will still see it even if we're not friends. So that's great to do. Like if you try to like befriend the CEO of Facebook, he's probably not going to accept your connection request. But if you follow him, you would still see some of the updates that he has. So that's a great way to stay connected to people, even if they won't accept connection requests at that time. And then again, like I mentioned, for any of the other platforms, you can follow businesses as well. So you don't have to just follow people on Instagram, you can follow businesses. Then you will see any of their corporate updates, again, any lifestyle. Sometimes we'll share like tips and tricks about accounting and that type of thing. So if you want to brush up on your skills, you can do that. And of course, LinkedIn has its own jobs page. So that's where you can go and start your job hunt if you feel like doing that. So if you guys have any questions about LinkedIn or social media, feel free to type them into the chat box and we will address those, like I said, at the very end of the presentation. All right, so next we are going to talk about the different types of virtual networking. There's many different types of virtual networking events that you are going to encounter throughout the summer, the fall semester, and into the future as we evolve and learn new ways of doing things. So Sana has put together some tips and tricks on the different types of networking events, how you can find them, and different ways to prepare for those events based on the style. So go ahead, Sana, you are on mute right now.
Oh, sorry, just give me 1 second. So we have virtual networking here. It can be one-on-one networking. So down below, you can see that there's virtual coffee chats, virtual Skype calls, LinkedIn messages, and networking emails. So those are ones that you would either reach out to me on one-on-one, or if you wanted to just connect after one of these events that you wanted to be like, hey, I wanted to have a virtual coffee chat with you, or if you wanted to do a video one is always really great. Those ones are one-on-one networking. And then we have here group networking, so something similar to this, our Lunch and Learns. They can include virtual games nights, virtual networking session, virtual information sessions, accounting club forums, workshops, webinars, and again, the Lunch and Learn. So they're both very different. You can utilize the one-on-one networking for more maybe personal questions to your career. So say if you wanted to know more about ANA and you wanted to know more about tax, you can really ask those questions within those one-on-ones. So like I said before, it's always good to be specific in those questions, because you really do get to utilize the time very efficiently when you're just talking to one person. As well as in group networking events. So after this, we're going to have kind of like the networking session, the breakout sessions. You would be in a group with maybe say 5 to 10 people. It's always good to be, professional and kind, to know that you are in a group with other people as well. So with that being said, maybe you don't need to ask the personal questions, but maybe try to figure out questions that would be generalized to individuals that, as a collective. So questions based on students. So how can we figure out ways to network with the company that you're interested in? And then that question can relate to all of the students versus just yourself. Or even if you wanted to ask like personal questions on how do you like your career at BDO? Within those networking sessions, and all of the students around you can also get to learn a little bit more about that as well. So benefits to both. I think you have the opportunity to attend both. Again, one-to-one networking, you can reach out with the cold messages, or even just connecting with us on LinkedIn after. And then group networking, sometimes again, like you just have to follow your social media platforms, keeping up with your emails, looking on the website to see if there are any, and then actually attending those after as well, and not just signing up and then not attending. I think it's always good to be sure to attend those when you do, find them, because they're very important as well. And if Courtney wanted to add anything to that as well, that'd be good.
Thanks, Sen. I realized I put you on the spot with this one.
No
So
worries.
thanks for handling that well under pressure. So everything that Sana said is true. I think that one of the advantages to one-on-one networking is you get to be completely selfish with the time. So for one-on-one networking sessions, I always advise students to come prepared with a list of questions. If you want to know about culture, if you want to know about somebody's specific career journey, if you want to ask for tips and tricks, if you want to ask what their favorite sports team is, you can write those all down and plan to hit on all of those topics throughout the conversation. In a group networking session, such as like the mini breakout sessions that we'll be doing at the end of this call, there may be 5 students talking to one employer at a time. So in those cases, be respectful of your peers. Maybe you just limit your questions to 1 to get started, so you can have a chance to ask your question, hear the response, let everybody else in the group ask a question before coming back to you with any further questions that you have. And if you don't have a chance to get your question addressed, that's a great opportunity to follow up after the session with a request for one of those one-on-one sessions. Now, I also wanted to share the tip, like, what if you're shy? Because it's awkward, right? It's awkward to come to these calls. It's weird to be on video and to see yourself. So some of the tips that I would recommend for those of you who are shy are twofold. First off, if you're on one of these video calls, you can actually put a sticky note in front of your little mirrored video. So if you don't want to like stare at yourself compulsively or check if you have broccoli in your teeth, like put a little sticky note in front of yourself so you don't have to look at your video anymore. For Zoom, I think you might even have the option of hiding your own video if that makes you feel uncomfortable. Sometimes you'll have a chance to, if you're like setting up a call with somebody, you might have a chance to choose either video or phone call. So choose whatever format you feel more comfortable with. For me, I actually kind of like the group networking sessions because it takes some of the pressure off. You don't have to be the one to drive the conversation. You can rely a bit on your peers. So maybe that is a good thing to do. Is there a chance to do something 2-on-1 instead of 1-on-1? Maybe you have a buddy who wants to jump on a call with you. Why not? Why not have two students to jump on a call at the same time with a professional that you want to know? I mean, it uses up a little bit less of our time, and again, it takes some of the pressure off of you. Maybe going to a webinar is a little bit less intimidating than signing up for a games night. So I think that there are virtual opportunities out there for everybody. Pick and choose the ones that you think are the most meaningful. At the same time, try to attend as many as you can because you might glean different information or make an impression in different types of events.
Thanks, Courtney.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, so here we have a breakdown on how the application process goes and how networking is an important part of it. So as you can see there, we have networking, campus events, resume, cover letter, transcripts, and interview. The process always begins with networking, either through virtual platforms like this or campus events. At the current moment, we won't have any kind of in-person campus events, but definitely just to remember later on for the future if we do end up being able to go back onto physical events. So as you get comfortable with virtual networking, the more you get to know, vice versa. The networking is very important to kind of have your application, your resume, your cover letter ready to go when you have job postings that interest you, as well as the whole process is kind of seen as a series of networking. So, you can utilize your professional network to kind of help you with either getting better at networking. So you can kind of do like mock networking things with your friends, as well as, they can actually take a look at your application. So have a friend, have a peer, have a professor, anybody that wants to take a look at your application is really helpful. And then they can kind of double check, if you have mistakes or even if you wanted to get more advice to improve it, it's very helpful that way. You can also ask somebody in your network to practice for your interviews. So doing a mock interview is really helpful. It can help you learn ways to stay calm and professional. And then again, it's a great way to prepare for the actual thing. So again, it's an application process that begins with networking, but I really do think it is a series of networking opportunities for you to kind of either get connected with somebody that is a professional to kind of be like, hey, what would you like to look at on an application? Or as well as, reaching out to your friends and peers to be like, hey, can you just double check before I send it in, and making sure that you have a really well-rounded application before you really hand it into, a job application. So it's really good. Yeah, take a look at that. If you guys wanted to take a picture as well, I think it's very helpful. So
Thanks. Sana, I think it would be really cool if you told the students how you used networking in getting your position at BDO.
Yeah, so actually, I had a couple of friends that are accountants. I do not have an accounting background at all. I was in sociology and HR. So with that being said, I had a couple of friends in BDO already, and they actually referred me to Kelsey, which Kelsey was in my previous role before. I connected with Kelsey, I think a year before I actually got the opportunity to apply. So I connected with Kelsey twice, two networking opportunities. So we had a coffee chat, I think in 2018, and then we had another coffee chat in 2019, which is crazy how that happens so fast. But it was such a great, opportunity to just meet with her and chat with her. And sometimes it wasn't even just about your role, it was just personal things. And I think it's a really great way to be able to put your foot in the door. So even if it doesn't have an opportunity, like I said, when I met with her in 2018, there was no opportunities then. Then in 2019, she actually remembered me, and then we kind of followed through with that. So I think it's a really good thing if you can, even if you make a connection now, it can actually really translate into something later on for your future career.
Cool. I always just think that that's such a cool story. I mean, Sana reached out just because she knew about the company and she found out that Kelsey had a job that she thinks that she would be interested in the future, without there ever being a role open. Like, you never know what those networking opportunities are going to lead to down the line. If you go into any conversation just open-mindedly with the purpose of getting more information, as opposed to the purpose of landing a job, you can be exposed to some really interesting information and build some connections that could benefit you hugely down the line. Or you might meet people that you want to work with, and who knows, in 10 years when you're an accounting manager, you can hire some of your buddies and get them involved in the organizations that you work for. It's a two-way street. You're going to benefit your networking in the future just as much as your current networking is helping you now. All right, so before we get into the Q&A, we just wanted to leave you with, we've created kind of a helpful list. I mentioned that you should be getting involved on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter even. Sometimes organizations have Twitter. So these are our quick links for our sites. So feel free to start adding these to your virtual network so that you can connect with BDO in a variety of ways. Like I said, we use each of these tools for different purposes to share information. So feel free to do this. And like I said, add us as individuals on LinkedIn as well, because we would be happy to have conversations with you, get to know you better, and share any upcoming dates. So I'll leave this on the screen for a little bit longer so that you can take pictures of it or screenshots or write it down. Heck, you can even go to the website and hyperlink it, favorite it to your page. But that does end our formal presentation on virtual networking. It's a lot of content to cover. I'm sure there's even more great tips and tricks out there. So I encourage you to keep doing some research and to start practicing your skills. Start with the 6 people you wrote down on your list. Send them some cold outreach. Practice your follow-up outreach to us at BDO after this session. And like I said, we'll start doing some virtual networking in the breakout session. But for now, we are going to get to any questions that you have.
Wonderful. So just given we're at 12:47, how about we take the 2 questions that have come up over the course of the conversation, and then we'll open it up if there's one more question anybody has for the whole group, and then you'll get divided up into our breakout sessions. The first question is, when following social media platforms of companies, would you recommend that individuals create a new Instagram or Facebook specifically for sort of the professional side of things?
Honestly, I don't think that it's necessary at this point. I think that you need to make sure that your privacy settings are set up properly so that if I'm managing the BDO Instagram account and I decide to go click on your profile and you don't want me to see it, then just make sure it's private. I would say that from my perspective, we typically don't use Facebook or Instagram as a recruitment tool to like creep you guys. It's more to get information out to you. So I don't think you need to have your own accounts for that. I think that just make them private so that if you have anything you don't want seen, we can't see it. But make sure your LinkedIn account is public and is up to date, because that's where we will do our research on you if we do decide to do that.
Just a note for that as well. I think if you wanted to, I think for Facebook or LinkedIn, again, you can just follow. So you don't necessarily have to add anybody or anything like that. You just follow it. So then again, that's another step for your privacy to, if you don't want to create a new one.
Well, and from privacy to perspective, like Instagram and Facebook are a great place to follow corporations. I wouldn't necessarily try to add Kate Thorne as an individual on Instagram. If you want to get to know her professionally on an individual basis, the best place to do that is LinkedIn. Yeah.
What do you recruiters care most about and least about when looking at a LinkedIn profile?
I can answer that, Courtney, if you want me to. Yeah. So I don't think we have something that we care more or less about, but we're really looking again for if we've connected with you before, if you send us a message, if you just send us a friend request or just a request on LinkedIn, we might not know where you've have met us, or if you're just doing just cold adding. But again, always adding a message to the adding before you send it off is really great. So, hey, I've met you at the Lunch and Learn today. I wanted to connect with you on LinkedIn. Really great, because I know where you've come from and you want to connect. You can also ask a question as well, like a follow-up question being like, oh, would you have time to do a virtual chat? Let me know if you can, and then you add that as well to your message. Is going to be really helpful. But also, again, like we said previously, to have an updated profile photo. So that way that we can recognize you, and then again, that associates your profile to, say, the Lunch and Learn, or if we've met you at an event, or even if, seeing a friendly smile, I think is really great. That adds some personality and adds your personal touch to the addition to the profile. So if there's something that you think is more or least important, Courtney, I think.
I think it's important to list what school you come from. So add your educational history. You can also use, there's a way to put like a tagline in there or a little biography. I think in the biography, it's a great place to express your career interests. So if you said, I'm Courtney, I'm interested, a third-year university student interested in pursuing a career in accounting, then it's at a glance, it's easy for recruiters to tell what you're all about. Because I could get connections from people in finance or human resources or biosciences. So it's great to kind of see what you're focused in and how we can provide value to you. So definitely have a little tagline, mention what school you're from. If you have any work experience, certainly add it. It's not going to hurt you, and as you advance in your professional career, that it becomes even more of a valuable tool to have a virtual resume out there. But yes, look for the picture. We look for the school. If you have a tagline, that definitely is helpful as well.
That's one really quick question, and then what what does recruiting job postings start for 2021 full-time positions?
For BDO, we will start our recruitment for 2021 positions in the fall. So fall is September, but I mean, technically sometimes it ends up being the last 2 weeks of August as well, depending on what events we have scheduled. So you can expect that if you log on to your computer on September 1st, the jobs will be open by then, but they might pop up a few weeks earlier than that as well. And there's no advantage to being the first person to apply. As long as you get your application in by the deadline, that is perfectly sufficient. If you follow myself and Sana on LinkedIn, we will do a post to announce when the job postings have officially opened.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you so much for the wonderful insights. What we're doing next is we're going to break everyone out into a breakout room. So just bear with us for just 1 minute. Each of the students will appear in a breakout room with a smaller group with one BDO representative. And we'll set the time for 10 minutes. And if you have a hard stop at 1, feel free to sign off earlier. Thank you again.
Hey, Jill, can I just give 2 quick tips?
Yeah.
Just for students in your little networking sessions, there's probably going to be time for every student to ask 1 question. So some things you might want to ask about is why somebody chose to work at BDO, their favorite thing about either their role, the team, their company, the challenges they face in their role, how they've transitioned to working virtually, any advice that they want to give. So feel free to center your questions around that if you need some tips on how to manage these networking sessions.
Wonderful. All right, I'm going to start assigning everyone. Just bear with me.
Thanks.
Great.
Danielle here. I'm going to stay in the main classroom and just kind of oversee too. So if you do have any questions when you're in breakout rooms, there's a raise hand function. So I'll be able to see that. So if there are any issues, just feel free to do that and we'll be monitoring.
Danielle, I'm trying to assign more people. Okay, here we go. Perfect. It looks like we're going to have about 4 people per room here, and we will start that in just 1 moment. All right, I'm going to open all rooms now.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
That was like panicky there. Okay, I can stop my recording.